Welcome back to another episode of BestowCast. I hope you guys had a nice, relaxing 4th of July break. I know that I am all rested up and ready to go. Back in Yojo June, I wanted to do a recap twice. I wanted to do like mid-June and end of June recap of all the figures that they announced, that Hasbro announced. And then everything just went bonkers. Like, Hasbro lost their collective friggin' minds. Here we are, in mid-July, and they're still making announcements. So I decided to hold off on the talking about the action figures until the Hazlab ended. That way I could talk about the Hazlab, catch up with anything that was missing at that time. But then it's like, oh, well, then here's Walmart.com. Walmart has a convention now. Yay! And here's the exclusives to Walmart, and San Diego's coming up. Hey, here's some more stuff from San Diego. It never stops. And I don't know about you guys, but as a collector, this is all right. I know I've said this before, but it's like, I used to collect the when they re-released the Star Wars stuff in the 90s, the mid 90s. I went bonkers and I collected every single, I collected that line, I think from like 95 all the way up until Phantom Menace. And then, the problem was that they just overproduced the shit. It's like, oh, well, you guys are willing to pay money. They go rabbit over, you as fans go rabbit over this stuff. We're just gonna produce it to the point that you just can't. It's just gonna price you out of the hobby. And I'm starting to feel that. I'm starting to feel that pain with the G.I. Joe. And it's weird because I guess if you go back and you find some of the older episodes where it's like, oh, I'm into it, but I'm not into it. I'll just get what I get it. I get into whatever I get into. I'll collect what I like. It's kind of like the Star Wars now. I'll just collect what I like and not go after the entire line. And ever since I've actually been all in on the entire line, it's starting to wear a little bit thin. I do have to admit, I enjoy it. I like it. I am excited to see the stuff. I'm really excited when there's like new stuff versus like just nothing, nostalgia based, where it's just like, oh, we're just releasing all this stuff and it's going to sell because it's nostalgia based. I like some of the stuff that's kind of new and kind of are kind of things that were, it might be nostalgia based, but it's not American nostalgia based, which is pretty cool. It gets a little hard, when you're collecting Joes, and a little bit of Star Wars and a little bit of Marvel and a little bit of Transformers, and then that bill hits all at once. So now that we're talking about big bills, let's talk about Wild Bill and the Hasbro Hazlab. So last year they came out with the His Tank, and I've been watching like the Hazlabs, and it's just like, oh, I was interested in when they had and I can't think of the name of the ship right now, but when they had the Mandalorian ship, when they had Din's starship, I was like, oh, I kind of would like that, but it was kind of out of my price range. When they announced the two different Marvel stuff, when they announced the Sentinel and then later on Galactus, like I almost went in on Galactus. When they started doing these for the Joes, when they started doing these for the classified Joes, I'm like, well, I've been kind of into these Joes, so I'm okay with the His Tank. So I went in for the His Tank. That's coming into this year. I hope to start getting Retro New Review, an empty promise that I always keep. I swear I'm going to shoot it someday, and then I never do. I get busy with everything else. I don't know. I guess I have ADD or something. There's something wrong. So this year they did the Dragonfly, which was, it's like, oh, okay. And I'll keep, this is a little treat. I'll go in on this. I'll work a couple extra hours on that side gig, and this would be no problems. So they did, of course, the Dragonfly, which I may have covered in the last episode. I don't remember what all I covered in the last episode. But yeah, it's the Dragonfly, all the accessories, of course, Wild Bill. You can't be without Wild Bill. A lot of when it comes to the Hazlab, they try not to lock down any of these characters behind a paywall. So the promise usually is, that it's a version of the character, but that there will probably be a mainline version of that character. I don't know if they'll do that with Wild Bill. I don't know. Will Wild Bill have a mainline character, or is he locked behind the Hazlab paywall. I don't know the answer to that. Usually it's like they'll get a redeco or something, and I know that they've been hitting really hard with the Night Force. So maybe this Wild Bill goes with the airplane. No, not the airplane. The helicopter. And maybe they'll just do a Night Force version of Wild Bill. That would be fine. That would be okay. Then they got to the first unlock, which ended up being Ripcord. And like I said, this is the Night Force version, which means that Ripcord, a regular version, will be introduced down the line. I assume anyway. Night Force kind of seems to be the Walmart exclusive. So it seems like that they're kind of using that as a excuse to do kind of a subline or kind of get away from this. I mean, it's the carded retro carded figures were Walmart exclusives too, and the Cobra Commander for that was for the HasLab last year was the retro carded Cobra Commander, of which was what's called the Mickey Mouse version because of the snake head looks kind of like it has Mickey Mouse ears, but I guess like there's a regular retro carded coming out. Interesting that this is kind of that this subline kind of ties to Walmart. The next one was Glenda, which I'm not familiar with Glenda. Enough time has passed that I am now currently familiar with Glenda. Glenda was an Argentinian release. She was a repaint of Scarlet. They decided to make this the mid-level unlock, and this was weird. Like, I'm excited for anything new. I'm excited for when they do stuff, when they like take characters from like the UK's Action Force. Is it Action Force? I'm excited to see stuff from overseas. I'm excited to see brand new stuff. Then like the toxic fan base kind of reared their ugly heads, and it's like, oh, we don't want this. Well, who the hell is this? Apparently she made an appearance in the comics, in the US comics, or just in comics in general, and gets killed off from my understanding. Spoilers, if that's a spoiler, I don't know. I never read the comics, so it was kind of spoiled for me, so I'm spoiling for you. A lot of people were like, we don't want women's in our GI Joes. Our GI Joes are men's toys only. This is the boys club. Get the women's out of here. Get them out of here. I don't get it. I don't get it. And a lot of people were like, I'm gonna cancel my order now. Oh, I didn't want this. Oh, how dare you? You broke my heart. Oh, this should have been Hawk. Ah, screaming from the rafters. And once Glenda kind of came out, everything kind of stalled, and I was one of those that didn't think that this was gonna. I mean, as far as it looked like Hasbro. They got it fully funded, so they don't really. It doesn't seem to me like they really care too much to push the other figures, because it doesn't matter. They're getting paid either way. Whether or not that's right or wrong, I mean, I would imagine as a business they would want to rake in as much dough as possible. And it stalled for a really long time, and they ended up putting out the third tier before the second tier even got unlocked, which was Crazylegs. And a lot of people were pointing out Crazylegs, isn't computer generated. It's artwork. I hear the grapevine it was a last minute. It was a last minute audible, and honestly, if it was, it makes sense. A lot of people say, because you can see it in the product shots. You can actually see. I guess it's like. Now, which is it? I think it's Steel Brigade is the original name, but I think it's Steel Force is the new one, if I recall. Sure. But you can see, if you look in the product shots, you can see the Steel Brigade and or Steel Force in the helicopter. And honestly, if that was going to be the third tier, they kind of did a good job calling it audible, especially after how everybody poo-pooed all over Glenda. But I gotta admit that I didn't think that this was going to make it. This is the at the time of this recording, we are in the final run of this. Let's see here. 12 hours left to go. They have, at this time, 22,593 backers. I think this is a way to go. Yay. We get a whole bunch of new guys. I am so happy to get a bunch of new guys. When going back with Crazylegs, Crazylegs, of course, is a Night Force sub team, which means it will probably get a Crazylegs. And then going back to Glenda, Glenda being a repaint of Scarlet, they kind of do that homage, and she still is a repaint of Scarlet. So you can see details on her that will obviously be a Scarlet. And I believe, I think I heard it off of Full Force podcast that they said that there was a Scarlet that's going to be a retro carded. There's going to be another Cobra Commander that's going to be retro carded, and that's a good segue to the retro carded. A lot of the retro carded figures have shipped. I had pre-ordered mine off of Walmart. I have never read the reviews of the shipping department. Walmart made sure to beat it to death with a goddamn baseball bat. Yeah, again, I going backwards, like, I'm not going to bother with the retro card. If Riley was here, she'd make fun of me because I always say, I'm not going to be into that. And then later on, I'm into that. But yeah, I was going to skip the retro carded, and then eventually I ended up doubling down onto the retro carded. And I pre-ordered Storm Shadow, Zartan, and 2 Crimson Guard, but I missed out on Snake Eyes. Currently, you can watch the unboxing short of Zartan and Storm Shadow. Soon there will be an unboxing of the Crimson Guard because they have shipped. But I ordered 2 Crimson Guard, and one of the Crimson Guard is a Crimson Guard package, but it's Snake Eyes inside, and it's the debate of whether or not I should unbox it. I do need a Snake Eyes, but it's a Snake Eyes on a Crimson Guard box. I guess I'll just keep a hold of it until I find a Snake Eyes, and if I don't find a Snake Eyes, rumor is that this misprint this error is a huge error. It's not little in any means. Matter of fact, I guess that they just slapped on a Snake Eyes UPC sticker on the back from what somebody was telling me in the chats, in the Facebooks, that they just slapped on a UPC sticker that's for Snake Eyes and didn't even correct the error at all. So there might be just a bunch of them out there, and if there is, I'll just probably unbox it. The only problem is then I don't have the card. I don't have the file card for Snake Eyes. Enough about the retro cards. Let's move on to the topic of today was, of course, that the Walmart.com, not even a .com, Walmart convention, Walmart G.I. Joe's exclusives dropped today. You could pre-order them. Of course, it was the redeco of the Crimson Alley Viper, a new character called Shooter, a new character, air quotes, called Shooter. I will try to come back on that, and a new character called Mole Rat. Now the Mole Rats are kind of an interesting dealio. They seem to be a mashup of like the Toxo Vipers that were kind of out like mid-90s, and the Zombie Vipers that came out a little bit later. Both of these things were kind of out of my wheelhouse. Toxo Vipers are kind of weird. That was that whole eco warrior kind of aspect where everything was neon and had some water feature that they could shoot each other with. His tanks were, I believe, had like water wells in them, if I recall. Looking back at it, and I do remember these things. Even though I wasn't buying Joe's or whatever, I would frequent the toy shops and see them there, and I just remember like just between this and the DEF, the Drug Elimination Force was always just a weird sub-team, weird get for G.I. Joes. But then they're kind of trying to take that back, and they're trying to make it work where they're doing this G.I. Joe Transformers crossover stuff, and that that they have discovered Dark Energon, and Dark Energon has these kind of negative I don't want to say influences, but negative repercussions, I guess. They make zombies, so cool. So it's a new, like, don't don't think that the mole rat like name was ever a thing. It's a new sub team, or not even a sub team. They're just grunts. They're just Cobra grunts. I'm excited for it. Love it. Great. I like new things. I want to see new things. The fan base, the toxic end of the fan base, doesn't seem to want new things. They just want the same old shit over and over again. And if they don't get what they will get, the same old shit, then they seem to be the loudest of the fans. So Shooter is kind of a new character, not new character. New as in like maybe 20 years old versus like 40 years old. Shooter, if here's a background, if you don't know, if you're not a Joe fan, again, this is something that I learned recently, was that Shooter was named after Jim Shooter, who was the Marvel editor. And when they showed the original team, they had a screen, and there's a hand pointing at the screen, and you can see all like the names and everything. So the hand's pointing at the screen, and the hand is covering one face, but you can see the code name underneath saying Shooter. And that was just a call out to the Marvel editor in chief at that time. And they have since Larry Hama has since wrote that character into the Joes, made that an actual character. Spoilers, killed that character off before the original series takes off, so that character does that's the reason why we don't see that character anymore, and I welcome it. I kind of like seeing some of the newer stuff mixed in with the older stuff. I'm not all hell bent that everything has to be just nostalgia base. Again, I guess they're serving not just my generation, but all the generations that came after me. Like my brother is excited about some of he's excited about like Crazylegs and some of the other characters that were like his generation Joes. So I get it. It's fine. Hasbro's trying to be nostalgic to everybody. And while I'm on that kind of bent, I want to walk back just a little bit to the Hazlab, and I guess pick apart the toxic part of the community. But the Hazlab is so weird, considering that you got the His tank, and then you basically got like 3 faceless troop builders for the His tank. Because that's generally how like Cobra works. It's like Cobra got you got all the grunts, and then you got kind of the name guys that fill up the upper echelons, I guess. But most of them are just faceless grunts. And then on the Joe side, you don't really like, you got the green shirts, but like looking back at the cartoons or even the comics or anything, it was always like the named guys. That are front and center. You don't really get to see much of the green shirts versus like Cobra, where you see the troopers, or you see the alley vipers, or you see the night vipers, or you see like all these characters that just wear masks and are kind of faceless. So when you get the His tank, you kind of get you get the tactician, and you get the gunner, and you get the driver, which are all like faceless characters, and everybody's fine with that. But then you get to the Joe side, and you can't really make faceless characters because you're always upsetting someone. And I guess that was kind of the whole thing with the Steel Brigade, Steel Force, whatever, because they're kind of like the faceless characters, or they're trying to make them into they're not really green shirts, they're more like blue shirts. So they're kind of making them kind of like the faceless part of the Joe team. So it's kind of weird where, you get Wild Bill, which Wild Bill was expected, and then you kind of you open up the floodgates when you announce Ripcord as the next character, and then if you don't solve everybody's problems, oh my gosh! And I've read anything and everything. People were quitting the line because, oh, you didn't include Doc, you didn't include Hawk, you didn't include. And Hasbro had to read every fan's mind, and they had to satisfy. There could be 12 different characters that people wanted, and if Hasbro didn't solve that all 12 of those different characters, people were just going to flat out quit and leave, and they were done with collecting. And so I guess it's kind of like the good thing of why they kind of went with Crazylegs. But again, it's so weird. Where I've seen people where it's like, oh, I wasn't in. I was going to be in once they announced Hawk as that third tier. Once it wasn't Hawk that was the third tier, or Doc or whatever, I'm out. I'm not collecting anymore. And it's like, well, that makes that's so weird. Like, everything has to cater to like each person as an individual, and not the whole collectors as a whole. And again, it's a tough sell when the Joe teams are all named characters, and then the Cobra team are just kind of faceless schlubs. But that's my opinion. What's your opinion? Let me know in the comments. Comment where you can comment. Tell me, am I right or am I wrong? I originally, and I believe I said this in the last podcast, or the last podcast that was dealing with the Yojo June, was that I thought it was going to be a carded Hawk. I know that a lot of news reports, a lot of, again, I'll say Full Force podcast was saying, well, Hawk was announced as a mainline character. And I was kind of seeing it going the way of like kind of how they did with Cobra Commander, where it was just going to be a variation of Hawk that was just going to be on retro card back. And that, that was going to be the third tier as in an echo for the his tank Hazlab. And everybody kept saying, no, that's not going to happen because you're locking a mainline character behind a paywall, which I don't understand. That I don't really get that, considering we got Crazylegs and Ripcord in the Hazlab, and everybody's like, well, or not everybody, but all these reporting agencies are like, well, those are going to get they're going to get mainline releases eventually. And that was kind of my thought with Hawk, was that they would do like a retro version, a retro carded version, and he would get a mainline release eventually anyway. It made sense to me. Apparently I'm wrong, but I'm not depressed. It makes sense. It makes sense for it to be Crazylegs. It makes sense how it is. If I had more money than I had brains, and that's doesn't say much, I could have like 3 more cents and I would still have more money than brains. I would actually buy 2 Hazlabs, because now we have a pair of pilots and a pair of jumpers, so it kind of fits really nicely where you've got you can kit out 2 different helicopters. So June 1st was the Python Patrol Crimson Guard. We had the Tiger Force Dusty. We had the Arctic Bat, which arrived already. It's like, this isn't supposed to come out till September. This arrived already. I'm still waiting for other orders, but the Bat came right away. No arguments here. And then we with the Televiper on the Trouble Bubble. Super stoked about that. Then on June 14th, they did Tunnel Rat. They did Desert Commando Snake Eyes. Pretty cool new deco. It's an old Snake Eyes, but new paint job, new redeco. And they had the Cobra Eels. Yeah, good luck. They were sold out instantly, and people were ordering them at like 40 a pop, 40 figures at a pop. Okay. My stance is like, think about the other collectors. You're not the only person in the world, but it is what it is, I guess. June 21st, they did, let's see here, they did Grunt. I was just referring to Cobra Troopers being grunts, but there's a guy that's actually Grunt. I think it's Robert Grunt Graves, if I recall his actual name. So they have Grunt. They announced Low Light. And, of course, my favorite, the Snow Serpent. Again, people were ordering these at 40 a clip and selling it out right away because reasons, I guess. If you're not dealing with scalpers, you're dealing with troop builders, I guess. Weird. And then on the 28th, they did the Firefly, Nunchuck, and the Crimson Viper. Also, they did the O-Ring Soundwave Thunder Machine Transformers crossover that comes with Zartan and Zarana. exciting stuff. I'm actually really excited about that. The Thunder Machine. I was staying away from the Transformers crossover stuff. I had to pick and choose, but Soundwave's one of my favorite, and the Dreadnoughts are one of my favorite. I do not have a retro Thunder Machine as of yet. I turned one down last year. I'm regretting it. Hopefully I'll get one by the end of this year. Nunchuck was another one that was weird. Nunchuck, I think, was an Amazon exclusive, and people were sounding off about he's got a very Italian sounding name, and apparently only Asians can be ninjas, and only Asians can be Nunchuck, which I would take the name Nunchuck, and I would assume that was more racist, that only Asians can have the name Nunchuck than Italian being named Nunchuck. But again, what do I know? Comment wherever you can comment. There was more news. Let's see here. We're at the end of the thing. There, of course, the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Chuckles. I hope that this is available to Hasbro Pulse, much like Dr. Mindbender. Exciting stuff. But again, like I said earlier in the episode, is that, they've unloaded like a lot of this stuff just in June and July alone, and there's still the rest of the year. And I don't know how much more my wallet can take. My poor wallet can take when it comes to these things. I've kind of got an opinion when it comes to exclusives anyway, and it's just, it must be a moneymaker for them in some way, but it's like, I don't get the barrier to entry kind of thing where it's, you have to drop thousands of dollars. At least for me, I'd have to drop thousands of dollars to go across the country in the hopes. It doesn't guarantee that I even get one of these, to try to get one of these before scalpers or people that buy 40 of these at a clip get their hands on them. And I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I kind of see how it was. I guess like he was an exclusive before, so they're kind of harking back to the nostalgia of how he was an exclusive before. I guess I can see like that, but back then it was mail-aways, and it was like, if you bought 5 figures, you mailed away for this thing, and you got this free extra figure, or a figure for a couple extra bucks. People were bitching about like the Hazlabs and how you can't put mainline characters behind a paywall of a Hazlab, and then you get to things like San Diego Comic-Con, where it's like, it's tough to even get a hold of something like this. I'm hoping, so far I've had due diligence. I've done my due diligence, let's you say. I've managed to get the San Diego Comic-Con's exclusives. But it's also like, it ends up running the gambit too, where it's like, well, now it's a thing that I kind of would want out of the box, but I can't have out of the box because of the value. It's entertainment versus, you have to weigh in entertainment versus value. Again, it's not really value for me. It's once I'm off this mortal coil, it's my kids have to deal with this and getting rid of this crap that they probably don't want. At least with the Hasbro Con, the Pulse Con that they do, you kind of have a decent amount, like you get a decent chance to get those kind of things. And even last year, they offered it 3 times. They offered it at PulseCon. They offered it 2 more times after PulseCon. You had ample opportunity to get those kind of things. They kind of did that with the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and it's kind of just the way that they should do. I mean, that's fine, build up hype or whatever, how you hype the line. But I don't know. Even when it comes down to like these Walmart exclusives or our Target exclusives, it's kind of hit or miss with me. Where it's like I'm not really into the sub teams that much, and I discovered why. I just recently watched the Geek episodes, or 2 of the Geek episodes. I just recently watched Operation Dragonfire and just one random episode from the Geek series, and I kind of understand why. I never really, I said in the past where it's like I've never really got into the sub teams. because I thought it was my location, and I think it's also because when the Deke series came out, I was out of collecting Joes, and after watching Operation Dragonfire, that's where you get Python Patrol and Slaughters and Marauders and everything. So I understand where it's come where it comes from in relations to the series and stuff. But as a collector, it's kind of a pain in the ass because it's like, well, I'm into Recondo. But the only way I can get Recondo currently is as a Tiger Force exclusive, Walmart or not Walmart, Target exclusive. Are they going to release a mainline one, or am I going to wait for a mainline one? Who knows? Who knows? We're out of time. I'm just, I'm being toxic myself and bitching. No, I don't think I'm being toxic, but I think I'm trying to weigh in my thoughts or try to put my thoughts out there. I want to know your thoughts when it comes to this line. Please let me know. Drop a line wherever you can comment. And if you're in the capacity of doing so, please subscribe to the channel wherever you can subscribe. Please like, follow, share. Eat Cheetos in the morning, whatever my old phrase used to be, and I will catch you next time. Have a good one.